And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the man who needs no introduction in the wrestling and MMA world, Matt Lindland. Thank you for joining us.
You bet. Well, thank you for that introduction. So I appreciate it.
All right, Coach. So let's take it from the top. What are some of the things your athletes are doing during this time to improve?
Well, I think everybody right now is probably focusing more on just conditioning, mental skills, video reviews, lots of video. I've gotten pretty good at, I don't know, pretty good. I'm learning how to edit my own films instead of having somebody else do it, just for the practicality of this is the clip, or this is what I want to share and show. And I mean, there's still a lot of skills for me to develop and learn and grow, using all the new technology, because this seems to be, I mean, a lot of what we're doing communication wise with our athletes seems to be really great. Like, I like what we're doing. We were doing a call like this with all our athletes once a week when this whole thing first started. And then I cut it back to every other week. And I'm going to get an email out to guys and just maybe poll some guys and see how often we should do those calls. If guys prefer once a week, or I think every other week, just because of everybody's schedule. But even after we're back to wrestling and getting on the mats and everything, I really liked how we were able to connect and communicate with one another better. And that was one of our main goals as a program, was communication. I mean, that is such a key to all the other areas, which is, building trust and getting those relationships going. So the constant contact with our athletes has been better. Just oddly, because we're forced to using this technology now, and it's different. It's not one-to-one, I can tell you that. I've been trying to do all that stuff from up in the woods, and I was out in the Pacific Northwest right after we qualified the 4 weight classes in Ottawa. Pretty much I got home that Saturday. On Sunday, tried to get a hold of some folks and see what was going on, but early Monday morning, I got a call from one of our executives saying, "Hey, I think things are going to get really bad, and I think we should start sending our athletes home that live at the training center, and we should, you know, look at canceling all training because it's coming." And so our leadership at USA Wrestling got ahead of this and did a really good job. I mean, between Les and Rich, just the leadership has been outstanding, and the support for the athletes and the coaches is, I mean, I couldn't ask for more, better leaders. I'm really happy with the way we're talking. Right before our call, I just got off a call with Rich, and just knowing that if you got a question, you got a concern, or you just want to catch up with some of the leaders, they're available. And that's kind of my philosophy too for my athletes, is like, I'm here to serve you, and let me know how I can help you. And that's why communication is such a critical component to what we're trying to do with our athletes, because I got guys all over the country. Half the time when we're wrestling and competing, half the time I got guys all over the world, whether, they're, some of them are in Italy and others in Norway, and we got a guy in Denmark. We got guys all over the world training, and this has been very productive. And I feel blessed that we live in a time where, technology can enhance maybe some of the things we're doing, but I don't want to take that human element away from it. I got back into town on Saturday. I had my 50th birthday on Sunday, Gene, and so one of my athletes called me. A bunch of my athletes called me, but one of them was like, "Oh, I saw your home. Can I stop by?" That's the kind of contact and communication I like. When you're, and I intentionally bought a house, a block and a half from the training center, just so it's convenient. You need somewhere to go, get away from the grind and the stress of being an elite athlete. And with that comes some stress, but knowing how to deal with that is important as well. So just being available and being there for one another. And I think I've got good examples from the top with our leadership. So
That's great. That's great. Big 5-0. Happy birthday. You look great. So keep it up. So
Oh,
keep
well,
it up.
thank you. I did trim that beard. I don't know if you saw my Pacific Northwest beard. I was rocking it for
Nice.
a while. 2 months of
Nice.
no shaving, but I got home and my wife thinks I'm pretty, so she wanted me to shave and show my face.
That's what we got to do. Oh, good stuff. And as you've always spoken, stressed the importance of communication. I think that's great. And especially as the athletes start maturing and they're operating at a really high level, there's always, at a young age, it's tell the kid exactly what to do. Then as they start getting older, it starts to become more of a dialogue with the coach and the athlete, because now they've done some things to be successful, but still there is that hierarchy. It still is coach and then athlete. So how do you balance that where, like you said, you give them sometimes polls of them maybe taking a vote of what they could be doing, and then how do you balance that with sometimes, no, you got to do this. I know what I'm talking about here. You got to do this.
Well, I don't do that as a national coach. It's a completely different environment. I've coached youth, I've coached high school, I've coached college. All of those are different environments where you say and I think that's a little bit archaic, kind of a philosophy as well. I'm the coach. This is what you're going to do. I don't use the word kids. I hear a lot of coaches and different people that, I got to get some good kids and children.
Yeah.
I work with men. I work with even when I work with cadet age group or U15, even we're talking young athletes. We're talking young athletes or young men, but not kids. To me, kids is, kids are they're the ones that they go outside and they, step in dog do and walk in the house because they're children. They do things that children do. And when you become a man, you do things differently. And when you become a world-class athlete, you do things differently. So there's just different levels.
Right.
I don't know if I answered that question, but usually it's a conversation. What do you think? What do you feel? What worked for you last time? What do you want to adjust? What do you want to take out? What do you want to add? How can I serve? I mean, my role is as a servant to the national team athletes. They have coaches that have gotten to them to the level to where I have an opportunity to work with these elite athletes, but they have had many coaches and mentors pour into them to allow them to get to that level, to where now they're on a level where, as a national coach, I get an opportunity to work with these guys, and not only are these athletes, they're the top athletes, they're the best guys in our country, and some of the guys are pretty high ranked in the world, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity. It's a very unique situation. There's only one Greco-Roman national coach in the country, and being a national coach is a lot different. It's you are working with the athletes. You're not mandating. You're not sending down like orders. It's just, like I said, how you got here. How can I improve you to a level? What can I do to get you better?
Makes a lot of sense. And now with your career, with competing in World Olympics, going for UFC, everything that you've done, what were some of your philosophies as an athlete that led you to a high level of success that you've now brought to the U.S. national team, and philosophies, team principles that you share with them that helped you along the way?
That's it. I mean, that's a great question. But my philosophies came from wrestling because I started as a wrestler before I went into MMA. My whole background is I was never a combat athlete. I was a risk taker. I love the risk. And right now we're in this time of panic and fear, and I think there's just not a lot of hope for people that maybe don't have the Spirit of God inside them, because they don't know the Lord, so they have fear. God has a plan, and we don't know His plan, but it's going to work to our benefit and our good. So whatever is going to come out of the situation is going to be for the glory of God. So start out with that premise. So the first thing is, yes, we all have fear. We have fear of underperforming up to our potential for what we want to do. We have fear of disappointing our coaches and letting people down. Maybe the hubris takes over, and we don't want to look bad in front of an audience or television. There's those fears. So leaning into fear is just always kind of been a theme of mine, and saying, oh, that makes me a little nervous, or that's an intimidating thing, and just do it, whatever that is, whatever you fear, that means you have to go chase that down. You have to go do it. And I got into this sport very late, compared to what I see in our culture. And I don't think it was late to me. I think it was the perfect timing. I was exposed to the sport as a 7th and 8th grader, and we had like 4 or 6 weeks of wrestling. We were wrestling, and it was folk style wrestling, and that was it. Like, wrestling's over. And I was like, oh, when it came back again the next year in 8th grade, they were like, do you want to do this again? I was like, yeah, I'll jump in there. And that was about community. That was just about being around my peers, and not only my peers, but some of the older kids that were coming back to coach were guys that I looked up to. I mean, these guys were alumni at my grade school, and they've went on. Now they're wrestling in high school, and they're winning matches, in high school in the big leagues. And so just being around these older athletes that have kind of gone through the experience. But then I put it away, and I didn't know anything about it. I went back to doing what I did, and I was an equestrian athlete, and I like to jump fences on my horse, and that was kind of my, that scared the hell out of me, and so I had to go do it. And every time I did it, it was just such an exhilarating sport. I loved it. But around the time I started high school, my parents were like, I don't think you could really, take that sport to the next level, because you got to be very, very wealthy. And that wasn't my family. We were, pretty lower middle class, or, we were a working family. My mom was a hairdresser, and my dad brewed beer. I mean, they were just working folks. And so, and during that time, it was like I went to high school, and that was a terrible experience, just leaving a rural grade school, K through 8, and then going to this big high school in the city, and going to the town. And it was like trying, you're 15, you don't know what's going on, and just you're stuck into this new environment. And it was odd, but they offered wrestling in gym class, and I'm sure they lied to me and said, you're great, you should come out for the team. But whatever it was, I believed them, and I showed up for the team. But within that team, I started to build a community of friends, like-minded individuals that wanted to work hard and train, and I certainly knew how to work hard. I grew up on a rural farm. I milked goats in the morning. I slaughtered beef and hogs, and I mean, I just lifted hay, whatever you had to do around the farm. So I definitely knew how to work, and I kind of liked that element of the sport of wrestling. But what I loved about it was the risk. And I think when I think about international wrestling, that is the number one tenet of our sport, is to take risk. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. And you take more risk, and passivity is forbidden. Like it literally says forbidden
Right.
in the rules. And it's harshly punished as well. I mean, you put a guy face down where his lines of defenses are against the mat, and you let a guy start on top and get a lock. Yeah, you got to be good on the bottom, because you did a forbidden action. You're penalized harshly. I don't see that as much in the high school and college style wrestling. Passivity isn't forbidden, but it's penalized very harshly in international styles of wrestling. So I like those tenets of the sport: risk and adventure. And and I was bullied as a kid, so it was like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to fight too. And I looked at it like I'm learning to fight, which
Yeah.
literally that's what I'm doing. And I think too often the American culture says, oh, wrestling, wrestling's a sport. It's a martial art. and it's an
Right.
art form. It's the form of art that I've chosen to pursue. And as an artist, there's different kinds of art. You can paint a painting, you can make a film, but
Right.
the kind of art that a martial artist does is truly about survival and toughness. It's like something that we've kind of taken out, especially when we're looking at this pandemic stuff and we're going, how resilient are we, that we can't even, we got to be sheltered in place and locked up to protect ourselves from the virus. Well, my thought was you build a resiliency to viruses, and you build resiliency through wrestling and developing that. And we're aware of, guys get ringworm and impetigo, and we're kind of that sport, so we understand. Wash your hands, take a shower after you train. We do those type of things, disinfect the mats and the surfaces. I think we're really positioned well here because we take those precautions, but we're still willing to take that risk. And
Right.
it's odd because I thought we were staying home to flatten the curve, and so we didn't overwhelm the hospitals. But now it's like, so we don't want people to get sick and die. People are going to get sick and die every day,
That's life.
not just from this virus.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where you're going at the end of this, it's scary. It's scary. So, but if you know that God has prepared a place for you in heaven, and you are one of his children, and the image of God is a father. And as a coach, I want to project that image of Christ onto my athletes, and I have a father's heart for these men. And some of these guys that I work with grew up at a real disadvantage. There's many guys that are in our program that maybe didn't have a father in their lives, or their father was not very present, or he wasn't around and available. And I think that really puts a lot of young men at a disadvantage. Um, and so just pouring into my guys with a father's heart. I love you. I care about you. I want what's best for you. And what do you think is going to get you to that next level? And asking those questions and communicating back and forth with the athletes, and not coming down just because I do know what's better sometimes, but I could be wrong, because what's best for me may not be best for this individual. We came from completely different backgrounds, and my job is to get to know them and get to know the situation that they came from, and just to really know who they are and what makes them tick, and how they think. And that's a process, and it takes time, and that's part of building the culture. And so we're starting to really do those things with our Greco-Roman program. And like I said, I do love these guys and care about them and want what's best for them, not just in the sport, but I want what's best for them in life as a human. And my philosophies are probably different than a lot of men. And I know you probably got young athletes and parents that watch this, and educators. And I think education is great, but I don't think it's the answer for everyone. I think maybe military service could be an answer for some, or vocations. And if you still want to compete and train, there are opportunities. But college is great. I went to college. You went to an Ivy League school. The value of education, and we do. But is it still worth what it was? I don't know. I don't know if it is anymore.
No, it's so much great information you said there. It's like you said, there are some underlying success principles that go for everyone, right? Like, I think what you really hit on there that I liked is being rock solid in that foundation. And you're just not going to be rock solid in that foundation without Christ. You talk about spirit, mind, and body and being in the proper order. If we're not in proper order, we're laboring in vain. So I think that's huge. And then the other thing you said there, which I thought was big, is loving to take risks. And again, like you said, it's not a matter of being stupid or doing anything ridiculous, but like you said, as wrestlers, we deal with germs all the time, but we learn how to take care of ourselves. So you do have to embrace the risk and the aggressiveness. I think if you have that rock solid foundation, which we can't take for granted, and you love the risk, you love the battle, the competition, That's a dangerous athlete right there.
Yeah, I would just, echo that by saying, a warrior's life is rooted in his faith, ideals, principles, which strips away pride, pettiness, and brings great meaning and purpose to your life. Warriors are in every culture. We've had warriors, and I think in this current time that we're living in, warriors are kind of looked at like, oh, we don't need them right now. We don't need warriors in our culture because we've got all these smart people. And you can be smart and a warrior at the same
Yeah.
time, and you can gain wisdom through your battles and lessons learned. And that's I'm more of an action guy. It's like you were kind of asking me about philosophy, and I've got a philosophy for my life. I've got a philosophy for coaching and competition, but it like I said, it's really about being brave, being courageous. As a coach, I think my role is an encourager, to pour courage into my athletes. Most of them are very courageous, but I think you still want to encourage, and that literally means to pour courage into somebody and to build them up and make them feel like no matter what happens, they're going to survive this. They're going to get through it. And what we're doing in wrestling as a sport, it's just a game. It's just a game. We're playing warriors, but we're just doing a game. And I remember when I was an athlete, I just wanted to win so bad that I think that paradox of wanting to win and not giving a shit about winning matters, because it's so paradoxical. It's like,
Right.
If I'm thinking about winning and winning, I'm not doing the things that it takes to win. But if I'm thinking about moving my feet, creating angles, getting to my ties, when I get to those ties, actually having the courage to attack and be bold and brave and courageous, when I'm doing those things, I'm winning. But when I'm thinking about winning, I'm stressed, I'm nervous, and I'm not competing with freedom and love and joy for what I do. And I think joy is left out a lot of times in this sport. It's like, embrace the grind. How about we embrace the joy? I don't know. I could be wrong. I understand that that there are times where you got to grind, you got to push and go through barriers, and you got to overcome obstacles, and you got to forge ahead. And there are those times, but why don't we ever say embrace the joy, embrace the love of the sport, and the creativity and the artistry? And why is it always about the grind? Why is that virtuous and joy is not virtuous? Because joy is a fruit of the spirit, but the grind isn't. And it's so it's just a little bit different mentality and philosophy for me.
Yeah, it being a both and. Right. I know that's the number one reason why people participate in sports. Number one on the list, they've done research on it, is because it's fun. And I remember seeing both Cale Sanderson and Kyle Dake speak about wrestling, and the first thing they said is, you need to make it fun. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of, it's not either ors, it's both ands. Like you said, it's both a grind and it's joy. It's having those underlying principles that everyone needs to follow, but at the same time, knowing that no two fingers on your hand are the same, no two athletes are the same. So a lot of what we do, as you said before, it's communicating with the coach and finding out what makes them tick. So, and that's a big thing we've always tried to do with Wrestling Mindset. Yes, we teach you the principles of mindset that underline all success, but also helping you find yourself and what you personally need to bring out your best. I'm sure you see that all the time.
I do, Gene, and I really like what you guys do. I think you guys have a great void for a lot of athletes that need to hear those messages, but there's so many areas now to get these great messages. And it's like you said, either or. Is God a lion or a lamb?
Both.
Right?
The cross is a contradiction in and of itself. It's vertical and horizontal, right?
There you go.
Not
so yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it can be like you said, they could be a grind, but I need to, and I can embrace this grind, but I need to find joy and love, because a
Right.
grind without joy, I'm not going to stick around. And we talked about, I came into the sport late, but I see guys coming in the sport at, 5, 6 years old, and they're getting 200 matches, a season. And it's like, there, I don't know if there's a lot of joy in there. That's just grind, grind, grind. Um, Take your time, be patient. We're not all going to be at the top of the sport, Olympic medalists, world champions. That's what we can aspire to. And we got some great examples. Like you mentioned a couple names, Kyle Dake and Kyle Snyder. I mean, two wonderful examples. We got a lot of examples in Greco-Roman as well. Wonderful athletes, Ellis Coleman, Ildar Avazov, and these guys are not only they're warriors on the mat, they're actual warriors. They're military athletes.
Right.
They serve the United States. Um, I mean, that's what they do. They're serve, and they also serve their families. These men have children, they have wives, and they're great fathers and they're great husbands. And I watch, how they pour into their children, and they show the father's heart. And hopefully I can be an example sometimes to these guys that I'm working with, and I have the opportunity, because my coach always reminded me that I was born in the image of God. I was born to win. I was designed by our Creator to accomplish great things. Whatever I set out to achieve on or off the mats, I was engineered for success and endowed with the seeds of greatness. And I know that my coach prayed for me, and I pray for my athletes daily. I care about them not just winning. I care about them growing and being better men to lead their families, and pass the sport, lead companies, and leaders of leaders. So I mean, that's kind of my philosophy in a nutshell. So
That's great. No, that's great. And I think that's also a very important point that I hope coaches are praying for their athletes. That's one of the things we say with our mindset coaches. I'll write on our mindset coaches Facebook board, make sure you're praying and fasting for your athletes. That's very important. We need that. And it's about caring about the person, as you said many times already, spirit, mind, and body. And a lot of these kids, they don't have maybe that father figure, both the human father and the spiritual father in heaven, and lacking both of those relationships. We're not starting it even with everyone. A lot of people are starting at a much lower spot, and we want to make sure we're there with them along the way.
yeah, well, I think it's hard to say I want to worship a God, and God is a father.
Right.
And if I don't have a great example of what a father is, somebody that's maybe harsh, has a heavy hand, or is not present, whatever those are. And that's like we were talking about. God is a lion and a lamb. He's loving. He's going to hug you. He's going to hold you. He's going to care for you, protect you. But he's also going to correct you. And
Right.
I mean, Christ made a whip. When he whipped people, I mean,
Yeah,
he
he was
didn't he didn't
clobbering.
bring a he didn't bring a whip. He just made one and
Yeah.
started whipping some folks,
Yeah.
because they needed to be whipped. That's the lion. But he
Right.
also loved and cared for people. And when he was hanging on the cross, I mean, that was the lamb hanging on the cross, because he didn't have to hang on the cross. He could have summoned angels and got himself off of this cross. And it was like, but he did that for us so we could have eternal life, and we could have the peace of the Holy Spirit. So you know, just showing my guys that I love them like a father should love, and being that example. So, and I've raised two kids, and hopefully they know they're loved by me, and I care about them. And but I have more to share. So I want to work with these guys, and I want to see them succeed and reach all their goals. So, and I mean, I get to work with really, really high level, high achievers, high performers, quality young athletes. So it's just a blessed opportunity where I'm at.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any kayaking recently? Just popped into my head there.
You know,
Speaking of risk taking, activities of risk.
Yeah, I was a two-sport athlete. I competed in wrestling through the Olympic Games, and then I went into MMA. And as I was transitioning out of competitive martial arts, I got into competitive whitewater and made the national team in that sport. So um, really just embrace that fear and saying I want to challenge myself and get better. And so I started that in rafting and got to a pretty high level domestically in the United States. We were
I
always
didn't
in the
realize
top
that.
three.
I didn't
Oh yeah,
realize
my team was always in the top three, and it was really fun because I got to come from this individual sport. We have a team around you that supports you and cares for you and works with you, but they don't go out on the mat with you.
that.
To working with a team, and we competed in R2, R4, R6. So we either had six member teams, 4-man teams, or a 2-man team, depending on the style of rafting we we're doing and the water and the race. And so it was this working with in partnership, and it really drove home this teamwork model for me and my mindset of how to treat teammates and how to work together, and made me a better coach just learning how to do that. But then I came here and took this job, and I retired from competitive whitewater racing and decided to start learning kayaking. And I got a coach that's he was an Olympic alternate in the '96 games, and has worked with me. And when I was out in Oregon, I called my coach up and was like, "Can we get on the water?" And so we had an outstanding run on the Clackamas River couple just last week. And then I got back to town, and me and Coach Barber were going to try to get out on the Royal Gorge, and water's rising right now. And he had to work on Wednesday, and so we tried to reschedule it for Friday. I got a bunch of calls Friday. We're going to do it on Monday, the holiday. We got a holiday, and I'm going to take a few of my athletes on Saturday. We're going to raft the gorge, and then I'm going to kayak on Monday over in Browns Canyon on the Arkansas. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to a little adventure. There's no other form of travel that refreshes the soul as well as traveling on water. I can't replicate that feeling and that joy of being in nature and just being within the creation of what a creator made, and just it really does bring me peace and joy, and it just refreshes my soul. So yeah, thanks for asking. I am going to get out on the water this weekend and Monday.
I guess that leads to a follow-up question there of how is your experience with kayaking and competing there, and just in general, how's that improved you as a coach for wrestling?
Well, kayaking and rafting are very similar sports. They're both on the water. There's a lot of, I would say it's probably like the different styles of wrestling. I mean, you can stand up paddleboard, you can kayak, you can raft. I mean, all three different modalities of getting down the river, and they all have a different subset of skills. I mean, you're standing on a paddleboard and different. You're sitting down in a kayak and you're by yourself, or you're in a raft with a team. All those guys do R1, and that is a fascinating skill that I want to get more into developing. I've done some R1ing, but you know, it's there's some really talented young athletes that are just raising the level of one man in a raft. But the dynamics of working together with a team, let's schedule another call, and I will share with you a presentation sometime that I did with my athletes. Let's
Be
schedule this
awesome.
another time and share how those different philosophies. But in a nutshell, we're all trying to get to a destination. Whatever, I'm a mountain climber or I'm an Olympian, I want to get on top of that podium, or I want to get to the bottom of the run on this river. And how are we going to help each other get to that destination? And kind of using that analogy of we're in this together, and when you're in a boat together, you have to work in synchronicity. If one guy's paddle's going like this, and the other guy, your boat's but when you're moving, I mean, it's almost like you're getting up on the top of the water and you're moving forward in a positive direction, and everything on water, because it's so damn dangerous. I mean, you there is a lot of risk when you throw yourself into a whitewater situation. So you have to prepare with training, safety equipment, but willing to take that risk as well, but not willing to get on the river without a PFD, without a helmet, without training, without the proper gear, without a throw bag. I mean, it's like check, 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 check. Make this checklist. Make sure we're on the same page as a team and we're communicating, again, back to communication. And sometimes that communication isn't always verbal. It's like, I see that rock, nod, we're going that way. But one of the other things is we always point positive on the water. That's just a general rule. It's like that way. You don't go, yeah, there's a log jam there that's going to kill you, and point at it. You point positive. And so with my athletes too, I try to point to a positive direction. Where are we going? Not hey, we got to make these adjustments. We got to make the how can we point positive always? But let's do that. We'll talk a little more about all the different analogies. But there's times in when you're going down there and you got a team and somebody pops out of the boat. Maybe they got hit by a lateral wave. We bumped a rock, whatever. There was a rock sticking out of we didn't see it, and dude pops out. Well, when you're racing, you want to grab that guy and get him back in the boat as fast as you can. Right. But if he isn't swimming to the boat and he isn't actively trying to self-rescue, he should not be a victim. Be like, help me, I'm in the water. It's like, as soon as you pop out, it's like, what can I do to get back in that boat and help my team? And those are the same things that I want our guys to understand is we're going to get knocked out of the boat. We're going to get thrown on our back. We're going to get, lose a match at a critical time for us. But how do I bounce back? How do I get back in the boat with the team and support each other? And maybe I lost, but you know what? I can help this guy get a medal because he wrestles the next day and I can come warm him up and I can encourage him. I can support him. So being there for one another. But then you got some of these guys that are just laying in the water and they're not helping themselves. And sometimes the boat has to just keep going down the river to get to its destination. So lots of analogies, lots of, thoughts in that, but just in every way, I think every new experience helps you grow and learn and become a richer, deeper person. And yeah, life is good, man. I'm just very blessed and thankful for all the opportunities I got.
Absolutely. Praise God. All right. Everyone heard it. We're doing a part 2. So we're looking forward to it. Real quick, where can people find more information about USA Wrestling? Websites, social media pages? Where do we send them?
Well, there's a long URL, but I think I would just send people to themat.com, which is a shorter URL. And we have a really good media outlet, 5 Point Move, that covers a lot of Greco-Roman, does some bigger feature pieces, and they got some podcasts. I have my own YouTube channel, Coach Matt Lindland, where we do a leadership and character development show. I'm in some really good episodes over this break. At Lee Camp, 3-time world champion, talk about losing the opportunity to go to the Olympics, being, right there to win it, just won the 3 world championships before. Charlie Plum, who was POW in Hanoi Hilton, came on and shared lessons about isolation and how to deal with that. And this guy dealt with it for 6 years in a prison camp. Who else have I got on there recently? But go to my YouTube channel. I've got that. I've also put up over this. Yeah. Okay.
I'll link you underneath the show notes for sure.
Perfect. And, also during the break, I've put a lot of videos of, my computer had a bunch of videos on it. It's like, well, now I got time to start doing some editing. So edit those up, try to get them uploaded. I'm not an expert at video. I'm a coach first. And the only reason I started a podcast was I had athletes saying that they could use more leadership training. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get some really great leaders. Today, I'm going to interview a business leader who wrestled at Cal Poly, Aaron Steed. He owns business called Meathead Movers. He's the largest moving company in the state of California, and he's going to start expanding to other states. But he hires student athletes, and he was a student athlete, wrestler at Poly, and needed something to make a living while he was competing, and now he wants to share that with other people. So just getting some really introspective, wise, positive people to just share and pour into my athletes, because they hear my voice enough, and I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to share that with the guys. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there. So YouTube, Coach Matt Lindland YouTube, and USA Wrestling, themat.com, and you can just and USA Wrestling's been putting up some great matches recently. They're doing some moments off the mat. There's been some great ones. I think probably my favorite one was the military coaches talking about what their programs bring to the sport of wrestling and how beneficial that is to USA Wrestling. And for us, for Greco-Roman, in freestyle, we got the RTCs and the college system, which just pours into our freestyle athletes. And we're starting to get some traction with Illinois, and Cornell was kind of our, where they started. Rob Cole's a real bright guy, smart guy, innovator, great leader. He was like, let's do this. Let's start, Greco-Roman here at Cornell and other colleges. We got Michigan State and Stanford, and now Nate moved to Oregon State. So I've talked to Pendleton and Navy, Colot's out there. We're starting to grow our reach inside of the college programs, which is great. But one of our biggest assets is definitely the military presence. And, with the Air Force right here in town, I get to work with those athletes. Army's here. I try to go down to WCAP when we're wrestling a couple times a week. Want to get out to North Carolina. It's on the other side of the country, but just having the access to that, and the military just develops leaders. That's what they do. That's their mission, is develop leaders and warriors. And that's what I'm looking for in our program, is guys that can be leaders and can be warriors on and off the mat, and have joy for what they do.
That's awesome. Great stuff. And actually, during this whole COVID time, I put together a 5-part series on building virtuous leaders. So I'll kick those worksheets over to you if it could help the guys at all. Yeah, I'll send that on over.
I would love to get anything you're sharing like that, Gene. Like I said, I really appreciate how your group has come out and shared messages with our national teams during camps, and we've had some guys working with our development guys up in northern Michigan, and just you're doing great stuff. Your whole organization is doing great stuff. I'm meeting coaches. You're expanding your coaching network. You're coaching coaches now more, right. And that's how you're going to grow. That's how we're going to grow as a sport of Greco-Roman within the United States, is not developing one athlete at a time, but pouring into coaches and pouring into leaders, and having them share with their athletes the joy of doing Greco-Roman wrestling, and how much fun that can be. And I just think there's a lot of athletes out there they love wrestling, and maybe they don't get as much joy from riding a guy on the mat and holding them down, and they'd rather throw him on his head, and so
let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great stuff, Matt. And we'll do a part 2 on kayaking and wrestling and how you build the lesson around that. That's going to be exciting.
Okay, I have a little PowerPoint I've shared with my teams, and I'll share that. We'll figure out how to do that. I'm willing to grow and learn the technology, so we're gonna have to do a screen share. Have you done some of those?
I have, but I really wasn't. I've had the people on my team doing more of the screen shares, but we could figure that out.
Okay, that's what I want. I was hoping you would teach me.
Well, I'm pretty sure you just click this green little box right there where it says share screen, I think.
All right.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely give that a shot. Thanks for reaching out and getting me on this show, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it, Matt. Take care.
You bet. Bye.